My name is Luke Mendez.
I'm Raven Borges.
I'm Madeline Closso.
Megan Fahrenhoff.
I'm Sophia Whitmore.
And I'm Kimberly Teixeira.
And we're from Mission Oaks Cultural History class. And today we're going to talk about some forgotten history.
So if I were to show you this picture right here, what words, feelings, or emotions instantly come to mind? Looking at it closely, you might notice that it has some resemblance to the Jewish Holocaust, right? But what if I told you that this picture was actually taken in America, of Americans, at the exact same time as the Jewish Holocaust?
It all changed on December 7th, 1941, with the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. The country was left in fear of another attack, and fear that Japanese spies had infiltrated the American public.
This also brought widespread hysteria. Americans were refusing service to Japanese Americans that they had served for all these years. Japanese Americans were also beat and mugged on the streets.
All of the hysteria, violence, and fear piled up until it reached Washington. Under extreme pressure, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, forcing all those of Japanese descent into internment camps.
Entire families were forced to move, children, parents, grandparents, and so on. They were even forced to wear tags as a form of identification. Japanese American families were forced to be present at assembly centers at a specific time, loaded onto buses and trains, and only allowed what possessions they could carry in their hands. They were even sent far away from their West Coast homes so that no one could vouch for their innocence. And this particular picture is an assembly center, Santa Maria, being sent to Tulare.
The living conditions inside these camps were harsh. They were forced to live in temporary army barracks that could house up to 10 families crammed together. And
As the war raged on, it became apparent that the U.S. military needed more recruits, and so they looked to the young Japanese American men within these camps and encouraged them to enlist. Now this created a lot of controversy. For one thing, it seemed irrational to die for a country who had imprisoned your family against their constitutional rights. For seconds, the living conditions were so bad within these camps that many men were pleased to leave. And for thirds, many believed that by fighting for America, they could prove that Japanese Americans were never a threat to national security. In the end, many men did join the Army, and they formed the 442nd Regiment, whose logo you see here. And they went on to become the most highly decorated regiment of all time.
After the war was over, the Japanese American internment ended as well. They were allowed to go to any part of the country that they wished. Some chose to go back to their West Coast homes, only to find them vandalized or another family living inside.
50 years later, the government worked to make amends. They sent everyone in prison a sincere letter of apology and $20,000 as compensation. If your family and yourself went through the suffering, do you think this would be enough to make up for being in prison? What other ways do you think we could make amends?
So this is a picture of all the relocation centers that were constructed during World War II. And now this gray area here is known as the evacuation zone. All Japanese Americans living in that area were forced out of their homes and into these relocation centers. A relocation center was constructed in any open ground, including fairgrounds, and that happened right here in Tulare. So this is an aerial view of the Tulare County Fairgrounds present day. You can see Bardsley, and up closer is K Street, and you can clearly see the racetrack there. But on the next slide, you can still see Bardsley as well as K Street, but now the fairgrounds is covered in Army barracks. And inside these Army barracks lived Japanese American families.
The fairgrounds is a Japanese American internment memorial site under California law, but there is nothing here honoring this history. With hundreds of thousands of people visiting the grounds each year, they are oblivious to the important history that occurred here.
Here's two pictures from the unveiling of two of the fairgrounds memorial sites. The picture on the left is the picture of the Merced County Fair Memorial, and the picture on the right is of the Fresno County Fair Memorial.
The Tulare County Fairgrounds is the only fairground used as an assembly center that does not have a memorial.
Now going back to the Merced Memorial, there were some aspects of the memorial that we felt needed to be somehow incorporated into our proposed memorial. As you can see, you see these informational displays holding the information of what had happened in 1942, along with the sponsorship plaques for all the people who had helped sponsor for this memorial. This is the back wall of the Merced Memorial. As you can see, all of these tiny names are to represent all of the people who were in the internment camp at the Merced Center. Now this is a close-up of the bronze statue that is in the center of the memorial. As you can see, it's Japanese American children, along with all of the luggage that they had to carry. We invited Ms. Rosardo to come to our class and speak with us on how we can make this proposal happen. And we decided that the best place for this memorial would be at the main gates, where many people will be able to see the memorial from inside and outside of the fairgrounds.
You may remember this proposed memorial from back in 2016, but based off of the new proposed location, we made some modifications. This is our new proposed memorial. In the center is a statue of a Japanese American father and child surrounded by cherry blossom trees, and around that as well are rock gardens as tribute to the ones that were made in the camps. And surrounded, because it's kind of on a platform, are the informational displays that will have the information about the Assembly Center, and then to the right will be a cement wall which we will have the plaques listing all the prisoners that are present there.
So after the conclusion of this presentation, we would like to invite Dina Rosardo to come up and talk about the cost and funding for this memorial. But before that, we'd like to end with this picture. I'd like to ask you to close your eyes. I want you to imagine yourself in your youth, and I want you to imagine yourself being taken out of school, out of your home, forced onto a train and into a prison camp. And when you ask your family why, all they can say is, "We're Japanese." Now, opening your eyes once more, I want you to decide for yourself, does this history deserve to be remembered or forgotten? Thank you guys so much.
Once again, we want, on behalf of the entire class, we also have some other students who are in the class that are present with us now. We want to thank you for this opportunity to come visit with you guys again and make this proposal. On the next slide, she wasn't able to be here today. She was planning on it, but the current director of the Tulare Historical Museum, Dawn Sabala, was planning on being here. Unfortunately, at the last minute, she told me she couldn't, unfortunately. But we have developed a partnership with our museum as well. As you see, these shirts were designed by the class this year, and we made them for the students of this class. Earlier, a couple months ago, we posted these shirts and the work that the students were doing on social media, and it was shared and liked by George Takai. I'm not sure if that name rings a bell, but after he shared it, it went viral on the internet, and a lot of people all over the country asked, how can we get these shirts? Of course, I mean, we're just a high school class. We don't have the means to produce them. So I asked Ms. Sabala at the museum if she would be willing to sell these shirts out of the museum to help us increase the awareness in the public. So these shirts have a lot of special meaning for the students, but as well as for those directly impacted by this history. And so before we leave and before we conclude, we wanted to make sure that we presented each of the board members with a shirt of their own. So on the shirt is a picture of the Tulare of the Tulare Assembly Center, as well as on the back of all the assembly centers and internment camps. And on the sleeve is the logo of the 442nd Regiment. We wanted to try to have our shirts tell the story. So we would like to present these shirts to our board members. Gary, if I can give you this shirt here. And then all the other board members, we have your shirt up here at the front table as well. Once again, thank you very much. All I ask is after Ms. Rosardo comes up and talks a little bit about maybe some of the funding and cost side, if we could take a group picture with you guys, that we would love that opportunity. Okay? Thank you very much, guys. Go ahead and have a seat. Oh, okay.